All right, welcome everybody. Interview number 2, we are here with Commissioner Diana Finegan. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to ask her some questions, some different things, and kind of dive into some Citrus County issues. So thank you so much for taking the time in today and coming in to do this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So let's start first. You've been in office for 4 years. What does it look like for your next 4 years? What do you think is the most important issue that you're going to be facing in the next 4 years?
Well, truly, it's not about the issues that I feel that I'm facing. I feel like what the majority of the residents are concerned with, and there are some polls out there, and we have, during my campaign, we've polled and asked the citizens, and the county has done some polls. 2 things that they're very concerned about, the top 2, it's their taxes and it's the fear of overdevelopment. So those are the things that I'm concentrating on, which I have in the past 4 years. You know, you've watched me take those deep dives every year into the budget and find ways to save taxpayers money, and standing strong against certain projects that I didn't see that fit the bill for our residents or the environment. So those are the 2 things I'm focusing on, as well as some of these other projects that I've been working on the last couple of years.
So talking about money and taxes and things like that, we'll go a couple different ways with this. First, we'll talk about the $39 million from Lace and Golia, and then we'll go into the property tax thing. So everyone's aware he came to town, said we have $39 million in waste. He did endorse you for this election.
He did.
Going forward. Where do you propose that we find this waste of spending, and what is your proposal to reduce that?
Okay. So I have been looking at that, and I feel that some people have missed the point of CFO and Golia coming. You know, they're asking for the audit, which the county is audited, and you know we're fine. We don't have that level of fraud, waste, and abuse, you know, that people might think. The point was he had a formula, and he said property tax relief is coming. People will be voting on this. You all should look out. I've got a formula. This is where your spending should be. This is how much you're over according to my formula, right? He's giving people all around the state a clear heads up. I understand that, and I appreciate it, because before he came to Citrus, I did not know his formula. I just looked at our last 10 years. What were we collecting in taxes 10 years ago? What are we collecting in taxes now? The difference was 109.4%. Our growth, depending on which site you're looking at, is between 19 and 22% over that same 10-year period. So in looking at that, I have been through our budget, as you know. I made an appointment with our clerk because they just did an audit, and I saw some things on the screen I was really curious about, but didn't say anything at the time. And I started looking. The number that I saw that I was very curious about, speaking of CFO and Golia's $39 million, was a $39 million number in that audit report. And so I want to dig into this and get some more information. We have a fantastic clerk's office, and they walked me through some steps. So the 39 wasn't actually like extra money. It was the way we budgeted. We said we're going to take in X amount of dollars. We're going to spend X amount of dollars. When the spending and the money came in, we were off by $39 million. So that's what caught my eye, right? So when people say all the cutting, sometimes it's just, you know, some of that will be budgeting a little better. Whatever we think our budget is, I think we can only, or what we think we're getting, we can only budget like 90% of that, right? We don't want to be budgeted so tightly that if something comes up, we don't have the money. Each budget has a degree of flexibility. Probably don't need $39 million of flexibility. You know, when we have a healthy reserve, and there's some talk about reserves right now, certainly we don't have to save at that 17%, so that could equal several millions of dollars. And budgeting, I don't want to say more accurately, because I think our team does a good job with the budget, but budgeting maybe a little tighter, I think we'll take a huge gap of that, and then we will have to look. People are saying, what are you going to cut right away? I'm not there yet, because I see how we can take some off the top, right, by just doing those minor things. But I have had conversations with our county administrator, and he is right now doing the right thing, right, because we have over a year to plan for this. So saying what we're going to cut now is actually, in my opinion, irresponsible. we need to give him the time, like he's doing and what he and I have talked about, of finding efficiencies. He's looking at how do we put some departmental expenses or staff together. Maybe we'll take another look at vehicles. I know one commissioner mentioned that. Let's give him some time for efficiencies. The changes aren't going to affect this budget. They're going to affect if it's voted in the next budget. So I know last night we were asked about where are you cutting, where are you cutting? That's just an irresponsible question at this time. Where can you find efficiencies and how can we budget better? And then if we're not getting to that amount at the end of the day, then we can talk about cutting. Then we could talk about what that looks like for our services.
And you had mentioned previously that you found, I think last year, 8.9 million, something like that.
8.3.
8.3, okay.
So the board decided last year not to raise the millage. We all agreed on that, all 5 of us. And when I looked at the budget, because obviously we had higher expenses, insurance, employee raises, and I thought, wow, they balanced the budget, no changes. But again, I'm looking at everything in that budget. And I noticed Public Works really, I thought, man, they must be budgeting way more efficiently because their budget's down. But when you start looking at the line items, I realized $7 million came from road resurfacing. Everybody was talking about we need more money for road resurfacing. How in the world could we take out $7 million from the year prior? We had also promised the sheriff $1.3 million, and I didn't see that anywhere, and that needed to be waiting in a reserve account, which it ended up being so. And I searched the budget and I found little pockets. I'm like, well, what about that $2 million? And I think we don't need that $1 million. And I got almost all the way there. And then the budget staff did great and helped us get all the way back. But that gave us that $7 million back in road resurfacing and that $1.3 million for the COPS grant and the new deputies instead of just spread out for, I call it government waste. I'm sure, in the budgeting term there, it's cushion or it's to be careful, but let's call it what it is. At some point we have to cut the fat.
Okay. And that's going to come into account if this amendment to the Constitution gets passed with the property taxes. I think the county estimated $40 million over the next 2 years or something like that we would lose from revenues. So we're talking about roads. A lot of people talk about the roads and they want road resurfacing. Our study said $750 million in backlogs in roads. What would you do to make sure that we prioritize roads with the reduced funding?
Well, first we're going to prioritize public safety.
Okay.
That's going to be a top priority. This is a great exercise no matter what, because then if it doesn't pass, we are looking at a large gap that we would foresee in that budget. And I had asked the board if they had an appetite. I wanted to see a budget that was reduced by $30 million anyway to catch up on road resurfacing. If that's what the people want, let's find out, let's prioritize that in the budget. When we're out there asking, you do have pockets of people that are still telling us like you have to do something with these roads. But when you're out there to the majority of people, it seems like they're not as concerned about roads as we were thinking. They are very concerned about their taxes and they are very concerned about overdevelopment.
And then speaking of taxes and things of that nature, you were the one that brought forward the CoreCivic option with Sheriff Vincent. I believe that was in the works since November, something like that. But you got on the agenda, you brought it forward, had the presentations, and you supported that option to switch over. Something about a bond that would come back. So you can explain a little bit about that,
Sure.
explain kind of how that would work and how that helps Citrus County if that was to happen.
Yeah, we have, since I've sat on this board, Curtis, there's been issues with CoreCivic, and everyone's known it. There's been staffing issues. There's been deaths at the jail. There's been drugs over there. People getting the medicines drugs they're not supposed to be getting, but not being given the medicines that they are supposed to be getting. There's been a lot of issues at CoreCivic. The sheriff then came to us and told us about the big bust, that the marshals were involved in. That kind of pushed everything to a fever pitch, and the sheriff was ready to take the jail. He came, he gave us a presentation about that, brought his numbers. Enough commissioners to make that pass had said, yes, the numbers look good. They were okay with the numbers. And he asked them, well, he wanted that consensus. Am I still doing this? This is a lot of work. Move forward. The consensus was yes. So, in speaking to him and about time being ready, and speaking to CoreCivic, who said no matter what happens, we're going to be a good partner even on the exit out. There's two ways to end that contract: for convenience or for cause. For convenience, all of those costs that the sheriff said would be high costs right away for taking it over is on the taxpayers. For cause, which I do believe we had plenty of information for cause, because every time these incidents happen, of course they're documented in addition to the staff failures. We had enough for cause. If it's for cause, initially tax money would be used to turn the jail over, but eventually we would have that money. Not that it would take $12 million to take the jail over, but there is a $12 million bond. So whatever costs we would incur to take that jail, we would go after that bond. Granted, it's a bond, it's with an insurance company. We'll probably have to claw at that, which means some attorney fees, which I would like to see that bond give us back also. So if I was being a very fiscally responsible commissioner, knowing that it was the right time for the sheriff to take over that jail, time was of the essence for the taxpayers. I would have never brought that forward without first talking to the sheriff, and we talked about timelines, we talked about how he would do it, and he had a very good plan of how, if he had time and if he didn't, how does he go in immediately? He had a plan for that, and he still has a plan for that. I stand by that decision. It was not a rushed decision. We had been talking about it a good month openly, but I've heard other commissioners were looking at that, and the sheriff, prior to that, this was not a rushed decision. This was a fiscally prudent decision for the people I represent.
Okay. And then before we get into the tough questions that are coming up here in a second, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of tout your last 4 years. Like I said, you've been an incumbent, you've been here for 4 years. What would you think would be your top 2 or 3 projects that you pushed across the finish line, or priorities that you were able to implement in the last 4 years?
Well, we talked about the budget, and I feel like in small ways, and then that example we gave in big ways, I have saved taxpayer money. And that's a great concern of theirs and mine, so I feel good about that. At the end of the day, I know I'm doing my best to save them money. Speaking of saving people money, not that it applied yet to all citizens in Citrus County, but the money for all the subject to sewer projects. Shortly after I was board chair, the very visible money came in from the governor, right? That happened twice. The second amount of money was because I've been working hard on trying to reduce the assessments. We were going into people's homes. It was, if we came to your house, Curtis, you'd say, yes, we're getting, if you didn't already have sewer, that's good for the environment, it's good for the aquifer, I'm on board. But then you find out, my out-of-pocket costs are me $14,000. Like, you probably wouldn't like the project as much. I felt that was wrong. It benefits everyone in the community. Yeah, there's still probably going to be like a $3,000 connection cost. That's a far cry from $14,000. And $6,000 was these assessments, right, on top of all the other costs. And I wanted to fix that. People were saying it was wrong, and it was wrong, and I wanted to make that better. So I sat with our staff and I said, if we needed more money, which project do we have that's out there that has the most economically disadvantaged people? It's a mixed bag, especially in the ones in Homosassa, and it was Homosassa East, and that's that second check we got from the governor to protect those people from the high assessments. So I don't even think all the people in Homosassa know that I've got their backs and that they're going to be covered in all these projects moving forward. But then there was Cambridge Greens that started before I took office that helped me understand the cost, and everyone told me at every level, it's too late, the project's done, some people have paid, and I had widows crying that they were going to lose their homes. And I just said, don't give up hope. We're still gonna fight for this. I'm still gonna try to help you. I mean, even from people that wanted to help, it's like, there's no way, Commissioner. There's no way to do it. But if there's a way, we're going to find it. And it was a blessing. It all came through. Those Cambridge Greens assessments are zero now. That saved all of those people $6,000 a piece. I'm very proud of that work. I'm very proud of our water resources department. That was a team effort. I'm proud of the DEP for the great work that they did in working with us, and of course the governor for supporting this cause. So this was not a Commissioner Finegan effort, although I spearheaded it. This really took a team effort, and I was just happy to be part of that team. And then of course the sports, the playing fields for kids. Every kid should get to play sports. And I was getting called from the girls softball, and the football didn't have parking, and the football people were encroaching on girls softball, and the soccer people didn't want kicked off their fields. And we had a problem, and Parks and Rec knew we had a problem, and we looked at impact fees that they already had, and now we're lighting up fields and creating more playing space. And we are going to look at a new park and maybe a sports complex, and I really see a private-public partnership. I think I've got people lined up saying, hey, if you're doing anything with the park, we want to help the kids. So I think that's going to be a nice effort. And I was once a proficient grant writer, and I don't mind dusting off that pen and working on that myself.
Okay.
It's a good project. What do you want to put money into, parks or prisons? I say let's work on some parks.
Yeah, perfect. Like I said, kids, you said it perfect. Kids need places to play.
They
we
do.
have a lot of people coming here, and the growth and stuff like that. Okay, so you mentioned growth is one of the things that people are concerned about here. We hear smart growth all the time. The word smart growth being tossed around here and there. Oh, we need smart growth. What does smart growth look like to you?
Honestly, when I'm talking about smart growth, it's pretty simple. I think of sticking to the plan. And the plan is being revised. The community had a lot of input. When I say the plan, I'm talking about the comprehensive plan. We have a plan that's in place. It has zoned things for growth. We have areas laid out where we should put infrastructure, where we should put commercial growth, where industry should go, and where homes should go, whether that's high density, medium density, low density, agriculture. Sticking to that plan is smart growth. So take, for example, the crossways in Lecanto, right, where all the development is going. Whether people like seeing some of those new things or not, it was in the plan. That was laid out commercially, and infrastructure was put there, right? We were widening the roads, water and sewers out there, so that was all part of the plan. On the same token, we have land laid out that is low density residential agriculture. We don't need to be upzoning that. That's not smart growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the project there in Lecanto was previously farmland or agricultural land because the cows and things like that. But you're right, it was shown to be, that's where the future growth to. But one of the issues that we're seeing is all these deviations from the land development code. We have a land development code in place. We have things like waterfront setbacks. We have impervious surface ratio, which is the amount of concrete that's on the ground where water can absorb. Just last week we had hard rains. And I don't know if you knew this, but 486 flooded a little bit, so Citrus County Sheriff's Office had to block a lane of 486 going west next to the Target.
I just heard about that last night.
And a lot of that's due to the Target project that was there. They asked for deviation from the lane development code from 70% to 80% impervious surface ratio, which puts more concrete on the ground where water can't absorb. What do you feel about deviations and developers coming to Citrus County with deviations?
Minor ones that made sense probably have been okay. Things like the ISR deviations, I think this is a perfect example what you gave of why we shouldn't have these big deviations. I find that properties are getting smaller when they're asking to plot lands. They want to make them smaller and smaller. That's why they need clear cutting for proper drainage. Then we look at those ISRs and then the percentages are off, but that's what we have then. We have tiny properties, potential flooding. I think that the county should really pay attention to what has happened when we deviate. And again, we go back to your question of smart growth. Let's stick to the plan.
Yeah, and one of the things that you had challenged with the Tuscany Project in particular was they had different apartment complexes they wanted to put up. They asked for 4 stories or 3, I remember the number, I think it was 3 stories, 4 stories, something like that. But the board decided as a whole to allow the additional height, but they didn't remove a building. So they had the high ISR, and then you had additional height on top of that. So you didn't negotiate the removal, but you had mentioned during that meeting that you wanted one of those buildings removed if you granted the opportunity for higher things.
And thank you for saying that, because you said the board said, but I didn't vote in line with the board that day, even though the board passed, those things.
Right. And that was one of the things that you had mentioned was you were against some of those things and wanted to negotiate more with developers. What do you think the role is of the BOCC in regards to those types of negotiations?
That was unfortunate, all the negotiating on the fly, but at that point it was, I don't want to say full panic mode, but this was the only opportunity to try to do what was best for the citizens of Citrus County. I would like to go back to that, let's stick with the plan. And if the plan has problems, which we're updating our comprehensive plan, let's address everything in the plan. Let's make our plan so good with our comprehensive plan and with our land development codes that when someone comes before us, no, there's no deviation. Like, we've got our plan so good that we don't have to do this negotiating on the fly. That was not easy, not pretty, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, and one of the things that we see with these developers, and I won't mention specific projects because of quasi-judicial stuff, I don't want you to have a say on that before it comes to you guys. But prior boards throughout the years, drainage retention areas. One of the things that they granted developers was the ability to include the drainage retention areas, include the buffers into their open space requirements. So all of these projects have 20% open space requirements. Prior to that decision in 2022, they couldn't include the buffers and they couldn't include drainage. Would you be willing to go back to that, to where you remove the drainage option, so they have to have drainage. In addition to drainage, they have to have 20% open space, and the drainage doesn't count as open space.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those things is, the developers wanted it because it allowed them to have higher intensity projects.
Absolutely.
Because now they don't have to do that. So your view on that is to kind of hold them accountable to land development code and to want them to, have less density as a result, basically.
Doesn't it seem like projects that occurred probably when you and I were children, well, especially you, since you're younger, it wanted to be beautiful developments, spacious developments. And I think even in my district, Sugarmill Woods, lots of green space in addition to DRAs, things platted out. I feel like that's not happening anymore. Everything is crammed in and how to make the most money in the smallest area possible. Some people would disagree with me, and I'm okay with that, and they say that's where people want to live. They want these tiny little properties, but I don't know that I'm there. I don't know that I believe that's right for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, interesting thing there. The other thing that we hear all the time is, developers come to you and be like, oh, we're allowed by right X number of houses. Tuscany is one of them, 5,000 houses or whatever the number was. However, they're ignoring the fact that if they were to build out based on land development code, they couldn't put that number of houses in there.
That was the point I brought up. Speaking of Tuscany Ranch, yes, you are here for a reason. So you're saying by right, but you can't. You can't build that number of houses.
And then to that point, all these developers coming in here, we hear about the growth pays for itself. Obviously, we have roads that are in disrepair and things like that.
Growth does not pay for itself.
So what would you propose, and how would you propose to get developers to pay for their share of these projects?
We are changing what was removed in the past, and that's concurrency. I actually asked staff if we could get that moved forward because they're bringing it back with our comprehensive plan that is being redone, which we should see late summer, fall, I'm thinking. That will bring back that concurrency for developers. When they hit that mark, they'll have to pay. If they're not hitting that mark, we've increased impact fees, and the board has taken the right steps to hold developers more accountable. I wanted the concurrency piece to come up quicker, but I guess, and by the time you put something out there and then the PDC, it's like, well, they might as well just keep it with the comprehensive plan since that's coming up so quickly. That will be an additional step to hold them accountable in addition to what the board has already done with raising those impact fees.
And one of the things we hear with a lot of these projects is the word affordable housing or attainable housing or workforce housing, whatever word you want to use for it. I've been asking everyone this question. What would you do to ensure that that happens? So like, for instance, there was an apartment complex next to Meadowcrest. That was approved because it was going to be affordable housing for apartments. That was sold later on. Now that they got their approvals, now it's going to be luxury apartments that are a higher demographic. We've got these housing projects that come in and like, oh, it's going to be attainable housing, but the next thing you know, it's $400,000 houses, which are far from attainable. Yeah. So they tickle your ears with these words, things like that.
That's my words.
I know who I'm talking to. I got to accuse you a little bit. But you had mentioned that last night. So they mentioned those things. So what is it that you can do as a board member to hold them accountable to, or hold them to affordable housing or whatever that looks like?
People want to talk about this, but the fact is, on the developer side, if they are not getting help or grants or aid through state or a federal program, they're not going to build that type of housing. Why would they? They would make way more money building those higher end homes. So unless they're in that queue to receive aid, those houses aren't coming. 4 years ago, it's interesting, the questions were coming up about workforce issues, and they kept trying to say, tying it to housing. And in the one place I was, it wasn't popular there at the time, but then the community understood that and obviously elected me in. You can't solve a workforce issue with housing. Now that's all important. Some of that has to be, if you need a workforce and they have to afford the housing here, you have to pay a wage to your employees where they can afford the housing. Does that make sense? What can I do as a commissioner is understand when these projects, when they keep saying this will be for workforce or you need the affordable, that's not true unless they see it, unless I see a demonstrated partnership. Do you have a plan in place that makes this workforce? Do you have an agreement like we're setting rents at a certain price, we're setting sales, and maybe the whole complex or whatever the development isn't workforce, but maybe they have a partnership with the school board or the sheriff's office or the county or a hospital, right? We have big, not big, but for Citrus County, some hospitals, maybe they have a partnership and say, we have X amount of units, you get first dibs, we're gonna keep it locked in this rate, or maybe these businesses are paying some to get this developed. This model that I'm speaking of has worked in other counties where private entities help fund the developer project and then get a certain amount carved out for them.
So when they come to you and say, we want to do affordable housing, or we want to do housing for the workforce, you're willing to hold them to what that looks like. Like, show us the agreement, show us that. And I've heard you say that before, some of these projects that come up, you question where their affordable housing comes from and things like that. So I just wanted that for the record. While we're talking about developers, I've been through your campaign contributions. You're not overly backed by $1,000 donors, developers, things like that, but there are a couple in there, here and there, that you and I would argue about whether developers or not.
No developers, Curtis. No developers.
But anyway, so the question I have for you, I'm gonna ask this to every single commission candidate, and want to get your input on that. If there's a project that comes to the board where one of your donors is involved, regardless of who it is, would you be willing, in transparency purposes, to make that known prior to the hearing? Hey, this person donated to my campaign. And if so, would you be willing to step aside if it appears that it's a potential bias? So the quasi-judicial rules allow you guys to, for the appearance of bias, to step down. A normal vote on the board for everyone watching, you guys can't just unilaterally say, we can't vote on this project. You've got to have a benefit directly to you. Right. But with quasi-judicial, it's a little ambiguous. You're allowed to, appearance of bias, whatever that looks like. So would you be willing to step aside if it's something to that effect?
Yeah, there's a couple points when you're talking I want to make about that. First of all, as a commissioner, and this is probably speaking for all five of us, if someone randomly gave us a $50 donation or showed up at a fundraiser or $100, we honestly may not even know or remember that. Right. Really. If it's those $1,000 donations, and we've seen them in some campaigns that really get stacked up, if ever I was in a position that somebody had some stacked up donations, absolutely. I would want to disclose that to people. And if I felt like it was so stacked up or there was some heavy bias there, I would step away. If it was a small donation and there's no bias, I probably wouldn't even come to my mind. But if someone brought it up, I mean, likely I'm not going to relinquish my duties as a commissioner because somebody at one point decided to give some amount to my campaign. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, just keeping it honest, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger question though is not those $50. I mean, someone wants a dock in their backyard.
I think you're talking about the $1,000 and they're lining them up, which
So like the builders are, I don't want to name names of people, but we all know there's people in the community that put thousands of dollars into campaigns that then have projects come forward. And again, it's not illegal. I'm not accusing anyone of that, but the optics of it is.
It's not illegal, and I know that I could sit before you and have some of that, and I don't think it's right on a personal level. I'm not sitting in judgment of anyone else, but at the end of the day, I've got to look myself in the mirror and be okay with the God that I serve. I would even love a state law passed about that if someone has projects coming before you within a certain time frame, like no campaign donations at all, just to get rid of that appearance of bias. I hear what you're saying. I don't know that every bit creates a bias, but we want to stay as far away from that as we can.
Right. And kind of to that point, this is kind of where we dive into some of the tough stuff here. There's been social media things, people reporting on social media, you know how that goes, people say whatever. One thing that's kind of been against you that I've seen is your connections to certain people in the community, a certain island with air conditioning with monkeys. So Monkey Island, you voted a couple of years ago for air conditioning that. I think it was tourist development money that went to that. Yes. So it wasn't county funds, it wasn't general fund money. So how would you address that in terms of people saying that you benefited someone who owns property that donates to your campaign?
Sure. What's very interesting about that is that 2 other commissioners voted for that, and you never hear about their votes for that. Number one, it wasn't tax dollars, it was tourist dollars. And the air conditioning for the monkeys did not make sense to me, but that wasn't a decision I got to make or the other 2 commissioners that voted for this. That was a decision that the state said, this is going to be like a zoo. And if you want to be allowed to keep them here, you have to do this, right? So there was no us approving, yes, we need them to be air conditioned or not. They're monkeys that I don't even think that they like air conditioning. They probably appreciate some heat in the winter, which is great. So yes, it was tourist money. Tourists like to view it. Residents like to see them too. They're beloved, right? And it made perfect sense. That was a good vote for tourist dollars. It made sense. And I know there was some accusation from somebody that has a property nearby to that who doesn't own that, it's a stretch if you say they benefit from that. It was not a full campaign donation. I think it was a couple $100s. Probably never even thought about that. Neither did I in my vote because I don't associate the one with the other. Right. I think that was honestly just a little dirty political dig. And again, so you don't mention, and I'm not going to mention the other 2 that voted for it because I wouldn't do that to my fellow commissioners, but it didn't make sense, the argument then, and it doesn't make sense today. Do I love air conditioning monkeys? No. Is it the right use for tourist dollars? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes sense. But like I said, I saw it online. People are asking questions about it. I figured I'd ask you and put you on the spot a little bit for that.
That's okay.
So thanks for that. All right, so talking about connections and things like that, developers and stuff like that. We have a person running for governor who is very vocal with data centers and supportive data centers. Based on what I've seen with people associated with you in terms of campaign contributions, things from Tallahassee, things of that nature, connections, it seems like this might be your circle of people that are not necessarily your people, but people who support you in that circle. So what is your view of data centers? I know that you did the moratorium, but do these connections with people influence those decisions for like data centers and things like that?
Okay, well, I don't know anyone from campaign donations or in my social circle that has been for data centers. yeah, so do you want to re-ask it? I don't know.
Yeah, so Brian Donald's running for governor. So he has a lot of connections in Tallahassee. A lot of those same connections are tied to you through lobbyists or whatever it is. So it's not you directly, but those types of things. But anyway, so people have been concerned about your connections to Tallahassee and what that means for you voting for local projects. So things like data centers. So he's very vocal for data centers. So they're afraid that you're going to kind of be the mouthpiece for that down here in Citrus County.
No, I don't think that couldn't be farther from the truth. And I respect people running for governor and their views, and they different for the different candidates. But I have my views, and Citrus County has their views. And at the end of the day, I represent these people. I heard their concerns. I put that moratorium in place, or asked the board put the moratorium in place unanimously to slow down because we didn't have good language. We are going to have good language, and we're going to have very strong language that I don't see any data centers coming here, especially not hyperscale data centers. I'm careful with saying that because, with the definition, I tell people, whatever the language, we have to make sure it's okay for our EOC to have their servers in that room, and small businesses to keep their server room. So, and that's technically, I think by definition, a data center. So we'll be careful with that. But absolutely, I understand the people's fears and harms, and especially with the noise and vibrations and the water use. I think the state has done well to take care of making sure that the people wouldn't have to pay higher electric bills. But there's so many other issues, and it is incumbent on the Board of County Commissioners to fix that and to represent well the people that we serve.
Yeah, and one of the things that was asked last night by the Chronicle is your view on the data centers. Someone approached the idea of banning data centers outright. I think you had mentioned that you're open to that idea. So if that was to happen, there's counties in the state doing that. They're getting sued by people.
Are they getting sued now?
I've seen threatens of lawsuits. I don't know if it's actually happened.
Okay.
But that might open up the county to potential lawsuits. So is that, number one, something that you would consider doing? And number two, if you were to ban data centers outright and there was a lawsuit, would that be something that you'd be considered fighting for?
I do not want to open the county up to a lawsuit. I feel like if we said we don't want you here, and they were like, okay, we'll find a new location. If that would work, I would be open to the full ban. Again, with a limit on it. I've talked about language that we could do that could ban these large data centers, and some of the experts said, you could do use the 1 megahertz, anything below that protects your smaller, EOC buildings and things like that for emergencies, and then ban ones above that, or maybe we could put tight restrictions, within 5 miles of residential, recreational, commercial property, which is, getting rid of them without banning them. This is going to take some legal help, and I think that we're working on it, but that is where my mind is, because I'm hearing from our citizens, and there have been some different experts brought before me, which I'm thankful for, that citizens have even found people with good credentials, and I know they're helping our county staff also. At the end of the day, it'll be 5 people making those decisions, and I think that staff will bring us some choices. Here's some standards for noise, here's some about water, here's some about power, but if we tighten it up so tight, we may be able to accomplish everything where it's not an issue.
So we kind of like the adults entertainment industry, or centers, or whatever that looks like. So we didn't ban them outright, but we put in restrictions to where they're not even feasible to do them.
Correct, yes.
So stuff like that, or your favorite mini storage units.
Yeah.
I know you're anti-mini storage units for the most part, so there's that.
Mini storage units are needed and can be good in the right locations. We had a small business owner a couple of years ago, I think, asked to have some, and it was like behind the business, not on the main highway. No one probably even knows it's there. I'm not you have to ban all those things. No, the people need them and they're okay. wasn't happy about like the 3-story unit at like Diamond. I didn't think that was appropriate there. So maybe that's why you feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, you did deny that one. You were voted to deny it.
Yeah,
I think it was a 3-2 vote at the end for that. Speaking of that area, this came up during your previous election, or maybe 2023, something like that. The car wash that's there.
Okay.
The car wash that's there, the plating. I believe somebody that's associated with that, Mr. Atwater, at one point was the CFO, I think it was. But anyway, so people raised questions about you going to an event with him, seeing him, at different events. I guess there's concern from people that I've seen online. People have asked me directly what your vision is beyond Citrus County. Like they fear that you're using this as like a pedestal to jump to the next big thing, Tallahassee, DC, whatever that looks like. So my question to you is like, is that true? Are you looking at this as like a stepping stone? And then if not, how do these relationships that you have built throughout the years with these high-profile people benefit Citrus County?
I feel like I make friends wherever I go. I genuinely like people. And I did meet Mr. Atwater through a mutual friend at an event, and there have been a couple of occasions when I'm, in a town and he's there that we've been able to catch up, and I think that's great. As far as he or anyone else that I may know that has a current position or has had a position of power, I like people for the people that they are, maybe not the position that they hold. I never got into this job for politics. I'm still not in this job for politics. You say people think that I might. People tell me, I see you in, and they'll tell me the position, and I thank them because I take that, that's a compliment, right? I see you bigger than this, I see you in whatever position. It's not a canned speech for me, it's what I truly believe. My response is always, I'll go wherever God leads. I feel like I'm in this position now. I'm running again in this position. I wasn't looking at other positions. Matter of fact, when I first started, there was an open position. Everybody was jumping in for State House, remember? That wasn't on my radar. I was looking to serve the county that I had been serving for 2 decades, the place that I grew up in. I just wanted to make this place or leave this place a little bit better than I found it, if you will. Just like any concerned citizen. Once you get in the seat, you realize it is politics, but I promised my husband way when we first started, because we could start to see some of the ugliness of politics that maybe I wasn't fully expecting. I mean, I expected some. And I told him I will do my best, or I told him I'm not going to let politics change me, but I'll do my best to change politics. And that's where we are. So I'm here now. There is no position that I have my eyes set on at this time. I have my eyes set on serving the people of Citrus County, wherever that leads.
Yeah, I mean, even now there's a position, I mean, it's too late now, but with the redistricting for the states, the congressional district that we're in is no longer Gus Belrakis.
Right.
It's Laurel Lee, I believe it is.
Yes.
And she's only a first-term congressperson, so I mean, if there was a weakness there for someone to come in and beat an incumbent, that would probably be an opportunity. And I see you sitting here with me talking about Citrus County and not Washington, D.C.
That's right.
I mean, I would think that would be an opportunity there if that was something you were looking at. So thank you for answering that for there. We're going to shift a little bit into jobs and job creation. One of the things in Citrus County we hear all the time is there's no jobs for the people graduating high school, coming out of college. They all go to different locations, Tampa, Orlando, we've got a state, something like that. What do you think is your vision to create more entry-level jobs for those graduating high school, those graduating college, to keep those people here rather than going elsewhere?
I think we do have entry-level jobs. I think that the goal is to have some higher-paying jobs. Okay. This was discussed a lot when people were talking about the Holder Industrial Park. When it was revealed that, hey, this place was to come in and this is not job creation. That was, in addition to all the other concerns, a deep concern, because wherever we have industry zoned, like we were talking about smart growth, that needs to be available for companies to come in to make good paying jobs, right? Light industry, not harmful to our environment, pays a good wage to the people, like to the kids that are graduating, grew up here, maybe go off to college and want to come home. How do we create that? Well, we do have an arm of our government for economic development. We're in between leaders right now. But I feel like our administrator is pretty well connected with some areas and may be able to help. Citrus County, is kind of on the map, and I think people are looking at us. So we need the right people to come in. At that point, the board can decide if this is going to create more jobs, have a better tax base from these higher paying jobs, and eventually money coming into the county, do we give some tax benefits to get that business here? I think for the right places, we can help with job creation in that fashion.
Yeah, and then a lot of that goes too from job creation. Citrus County's top 2 or 3 in the state for high unemployment. I think we're over 7% unemployment at this point. That can lead to things like homelessness. We're seeing a big issue with homelessness here in Citrus County. What steps do you think you could take as an elected official to help offset some of those issues, reduce the issue of homelessness, and support the people currently experiencing it?
I think that we have shelters in place that are doing a good job for people that are homeless and don't want to be homeless. I believe deeply in the rapid rehousing. You can call it a program or the term, I'm not sure what they're using now, but basically the premise is before people lose their homes, if they're on the cusp of losing their home or they have just lost a home for whatever reason, get those people housed immediately as soon as possible. So the Mid-Florida Homeless Coalition right now is working with the Family Resource Center, and they are doing this. They are doing this successfully. And what happens is those people aren't filling up our homeless shelters, and now the people that are in that flux that need an actual shelter to go to, those are available.
Yeah. And then kind of to that point as well, we have a lot of small businesses in Citrus County. As you know, you have a small business yourself in here. A lot of them feel that the BOCC isn't small business friendly. We look at a lot of these developments that are going on in Citrus County, especially the Target area. That section is all large national retailers. What do you think you can do as a board member, or the BOCC can do as a whole, to support small businesses and help the small business community thrive?
I think part of it we are starting to accomplish, like permitting, if that is an issue for small business. We have somebody now that can help expedite the permits, can help a small business navigate the process. We have a team of people actually that will help them navigate that process because it's done online, and if someone's ready to start their small business, time is money, right? Days delayed means dollars not earned for that mom and pop. So we want to help them get there. The other thing we can do is, I've been wanting, and I think it's starting to come online, is help these people, if they can do business with the county, explain to them how they can do that. I would much rather our local people have business with the county than us contracting with all these out-of-town people. So that's the second thing. And the third, whatever, it's putting the information out. If there are good grants or opportunities or ways the county can help, we need to start pushing this information out to small business. Interesting that you asked, because this was a recent conversation, probably just a week ago, that I had with our own county administrator.
Yep. And a lot of these projects, kind of going a little bit back to growth, but in the small business sense of it. A lot of these projects use, like housing projects or, the retail projects, they use out-of-town contractors. We have a whole very skilled workforce here with contractors and things like that. Is there a way that the BOCC can encourage more use of our local people versus these companies coming in, developers coming in and using outside contractors, things like that?
Well, obviously we can't regulate who the developers are using or private business, but going back to us educating our local people on how you do business with the county, absolutely. I would much rather see us do business with local people. As far as those out-of-towners that we can't say you have to use our local people. I'd love to be able to say that, but unfortunately we can't.
But with the speaking of the county side of it, so we have a lot of bidding for asphalt. We have mowing contracts. We have a lot of those things. I haven't looked through all that stuff in depth, but I assume that there's a lot of local people that are interested in those types of things. Is there a way that we can prioritize those types of jobs to the local people to where they get either a boost in the scoring, or whether they get notified? I was talking to someone the other day. They had no idea that there's even bids for T-shirts, or there's bids for different things. So the small businesses may not know that there's bids available for those things. So is there anything that you guys can do to kind of help with that?
Yes, and I've been assured that that is getting put online. I was told something was already there, but I couldn't easily click to find it, so that's what they're supposed to be working on. Like, this needs to be very easy. Like, I want to do business with the county, click, right? So I haven't, because this is so in the last couple of weeks, I haven't checked on it again. But yeah, that's what we need to be doing, pushing that information out there, making sure small business knows how to do business with us. But yes, already I have been told that in the scoring, that if you are local, you get extra points for that.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So we'll stop that one. Okay, so one of the things that happens during campaigns, campaign season, is all the different events that are going on. I had heard through the grapevine that you are going to decline going to the chamber events and their debate that they're doing later this week. Do you care to comment on why that decision was made? Do you feel it's going to hurt your campaign because people are going to say that you're dodging questions or whatever?
Well, I would hope no one could say I'm dodging questions. I mean, I'm here. I just did the Chronicle Forum last night. I've been going everywhere. I'm invited, and potentially I would have went there, but some things happened recently, and that board made some decisions and stood by some things, and some comments were made that would have adversely affected me, talking about lawsuits and things. So it just is not appropriate for me to be there, and leadership in that organization right now is not reflecting the will of the people of Citrus County. My husband is a small business owner of a few businesses now. I think that supporting efforts for small business is incredibly important. In most places, I think the chamber accomplishes that. Here, I think it's more about politics. And maybe the county needs to step up then and help small business. I think our small businesses need to be supported. It was said that I was a member, which is interesting because I had been before, and last election, politics trumped small business, right? And we got out, but it seems like an employee had signed us up. My husband wanted to do the Strawberry Festival, and then I was there at one of those booths that he donated to the campaign. So I guess with that, you must become a chamber member if you do an event. So they have events, but you must be one. And listen, there's so many good people that belong and that are small business owners, and I'm not begrudging any one of that, but a personal decision for me. It's just not appropriate at this time. You never know what happens in the future, but this is not the time. I don't think that hurts me at all. I think there were other businesses that after they viewed things were dropping out. Like I said, you'll post this video. The Chronicle has their video. Other people will come out with things. People cared both ways about that. I think most people were happy with my decision. Somebody from a caring point of view had some concerns about me not attending. And, I took that, and that person asked me to do something for him and said, I want you to pray about this. And because I said, I did, and I have peace. And he said, but I said, I'll tell you what, I will take it back to that. And it was daily and multiple times a day, especially after we, had talked, because if nothing else, I'll be a woman of my word, right? And because I know if I'm praying for something and I don't have peace no matter what I think or not, like I know, and it just, and I so appreciate that gesture. I have peace where I am. It's not right for me to be there right now.
Okay. And like you said, you've done other things. I've seen you out and about at different events and things like that. And you're not the only one that's declined it. Someone else has declined it, or two other people.
I'm fully accessible to people, and it won't cost them anything, right? There is a fee to go to that, so that's excluding. That's for certain people, and I'm happy to talk to everyone I can talk to.
Shifting a little bit more to controversy type stuff. Again, this has come up several times in the last couple of years. The hurricanes came. There was questions, and I've heard it. People called me and asked me for records. I've done records requests. I can't find any information about this, but I'm asking you this question, and let's see what you have your answer for that. During the storm, 2024, 5, whichever was it. 24. So the storms came in, flooded Homosassa, flooded Crystal River, all those things. The rumor was that you called staff and had them come out to your road and clean your road first before anyone else got the road cleaned.
I've heard that rumor.
Can you shed light on that? Is that something that you did?
Yeah, actually, that was a rumor. I know who it was started by. That person is no longer in, I'll just say Citrus County government, was seen in her vehicle down my street by neighbors several times trying to figure out some nefarious action. The truth of the matter is, we were stuck in that house for a couple of days while people were milling about their business. The house didn't flood, the property did a lot. The administrator, when we got cell service back, which I had none for some time, called all of us, I believe, 5 commissioners, always keeping in touch. And at some point, I was getting calls, and I noticed my own. I said, there's stuff everywhere. I assume this is probably old Homosassa. This is really bad. I think septic tanks, are leaking. Ken Sheik would probably know best, who has sewer and where the septic is. It's pretty bad. And he said, simply, I've got crews out. And I said, just, they might want to take a look at that. Not about my street. I couldn't tell you if mine was 1st, 3rd, 5th. Honestly, I never asked to this day. I think that, honestly, I try to turn everything to a positive. It speaks volumes, because if that's the thing, if that's the only thing, if that's what you're trying to say looks bad as me as a commissioner, all the good work that I've done, and that is fake news. That is a bold-faced lie. That never happened. That never happened.
Okay. And one of the other things that's going around similar to that, and I saw it this morning, and the reason why I bring it up today is that it was just posted recently on one of the social media pages for something, is that supporters of your opponent tout her efforts with the hurricanes, and she was out there doing things, and they questioned where you were and things like that. So how involved were you in the community during that particular time, and what events or whatever that you did for that?
Shortly before that, Steve and I came back from vacation, and we both had the flu, really bad. He was a little ahead of me, so he was just doing a little bit better. I was still pretty sick during the hurricane, like we couldn't leave. Even talking to the previous EOC directors, like, you guys need to go on, I told them our whole plan, which was a good plan, but I'm like, we have very high fevers. I can't go stay with my parents, I can't, So we had a good plan in place. After things were calming down, still not feeling well, but knew I was needed in the community. Every day I was there, and the president of the Civic Club saw me in person every day, called me multiple times every day. I know that a certain group with my opponent tried to steer that in another fashion and say, we didn't see her down here, but the day that Senator Rubio was here. But actually, the opposite was true for me. I was at that location every day and only saw my opponent down there the time when he was there. Now listen, I'm not being ugly about that. I am sure she was out helping the community, and probably in some different areas. As sometime I was sent, I was getting donations at Lowe's or at Walmart. So, I was there sometimes and helping sometimes. So I just think that's really ugly. But no, as soon as that fever broke, which was pretty much after we could get out of the house, I was there not feeling well, but helping my community every day.
And kind of to that point, the Citrus County community is very loving, and we support each other, things like that. What things throughout the years that you've been here in Citrus County have you done within the community to help out or contribute to, and kind of what have been your contributions throughout the years to Citrus County?
I would say that's a long list because I've lived here so long. When I was with CASA, I mean, we're talking about 2 decades, so I didn't just do the job. That's not my personality. I would like to say I went above and beyond. Like, I started new programs and helped support families here in Citrus County, not only helping victims of domestic violence, mostly were women and children, some men also, but started programs in the schools to help our kids, gave talks at hospitals and to pastors and child protection workers, anywhere that we could help and make a difference. I was working to serve the community. At the same time, helping partner agencies, COB and Family Resource Center and Daystar. I hate to miss anyone. We were all, United Way, we're all working together. Of course, when I left that, I helped the Key Center write a grant, and we're still major supporters of the Key Center. Blessings, Family Resource Center, United Way. Financially, we support probably more than I can mention because, honestly, when you have a business, people come in for all sorts of things, and we do our best to help as many people in the community that we can. Financial support. Now, as a person, especially being busy as a county commissioner and then having boards appointed to me, I keep some boards that I sit on personally, things that where I want to make a difference. And one of those is the Sanctuary Mission, which is a homeless recovery center. And it is a fantastic program, and I give my time to volunteer as a board member. And then I also serve on the Citrus County Veterans Foundation, and we're helping veterans, but that's also helping keeping veterans in their homes. So I'm very passionate about helping those that are disadvantaged and helping them stay in their homes before they reach that point of homelessness.
Yeah, and kind of shifting a little bit to the county issues and things like that. We've heard from several people throughout the years that we want evening meetings. You've heard it's, now that you're chairman of the board, you have a little bit of sway in some of what this looks like. I did a poll recently, it's unscientific, so it might be skewed one way or the other, but 330 people replied to it. The question I asked was, would you guys support a meeting in the evening once every other month, whatever that looks like. 85% of people said yes, they wanted an evening meeting. Is that something that you'd be willing to bring to the board, have a discussion about? I know we've tried it in the past, and they gave up because only a handful of people showed up. But people,
I don't think it was a handful either, Curtis.
Okay, but again, people keep saying they want it. We hear it over and over and over.
But you know what I hear, and tell me, because I didn't see the poll. I don't know if it was specifics, and I try to tell people, because when I see people speak on social media, and as probably anyone that knows me, I don't live my life on there, so I probably miss a lot of that. I'm more face-to-face and working with people individually. They would say something about evening meetings because they're doing all this growth and development when we're working, and that's not true. All of it, the meetings that the Board of County Commissioners decides these applications, these quasi-judicial applications, happen after 5. And unless it's a community of people that got passionate about something, like a community, like a Sugarmill Woods or like a Pine Ridge, they're not showing up. And it's after 5, the things that they find most important. So yes, if they find their regular business that they want to have a say in after 5, I'm completely open to it. Most of those people, for those individual items, they email us or call us. Mostly it's email. I'm definitely open to it. I hear what you're saying in the poll. I find that those people don't understand that they can come after 5 and talk about all of the things that they care about. If they say no, it's the everyday business. We have an evening budget hearing. Nobody's coming to that. I want them to. I want to hear their input about the budget, but they're not coming. So, maybe that's my test. The budget hearings are coming up. Help us. Help the county advertise that. And when it's that evening meeting, let's see if people come. And if they're like, yes, we want to be an active part of government, maybe that's time to change the tide. Meetings could be long. So, and when we have those, currently we have after 5 meetings. So if we start with those and we keep those at 5, sometimes those run hours. Are the people going to stay and then wait until and have a regular meeting that might start at 8 o'clock at night? And then if that meeting runs long, are they going to hang with us till 1 o'clock in the morning? And then do they want their commissioners doing that? Are we making our best decisions at 1 o'clock in the morning? So those are just the things that I'm concerned about. It's not that I'm not open to it. I just don't know how we do all of it and we start 5 witness. So I'm open to the idea. I just don't know if we're gonna have to split out some things, like do development on one day and then regular business on another. If everything's after 5, because if they're saying after 5, that really means they want us to start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. And that's going to bring us to 1 or 2 in the morning. And I don't know what great decisions are being made at that time.
I talked about this with another candidate earlier today with the same idea. What if it was like an idea to where people can just approach the government and give their open to the public? And so we do like an open to the public at 6 p.m. or something like that. So where people can have a time certain to where they can show up, and a lot of times now with open to the public, the meeting starts at 1, they get there, they're not open to the public until 3. Because of time certain stuff before then or whatever.
Right.
And so they sit there for 3 hours or whatever it is, missing work. So what if there's like an option for like a 6 p.m. time certain that, hey, this is open to the public once a month or whatever, once every other month, that people can just come in and give their 3 minutes to whatever.
Meaning on a different day of the week?
Different day of the week, or maybe there's not there's no development projects at 5.
And then that's when
And so then you would do open to the public a time certain at like 5:30. And so you would recess the meeting if it ends at 3, you recess till 5:30, and then you open to the public at 5:30 or 6 or whatever time that is, as a time certain, so people show up there, they know that they get open to the public at that time.
That's not a bad idea.
And then let you have their 3 minutes.
Not on those after 5 days, because that would be very disjointed, trying to hear something, stop the application. I don't even know if we could do that. And then 6 o'clock wouldn't be 6 o'clock, so yeah, on a one day when we don't have those applications, that could work.
And that can be like a fluid agenda item, hey, we don't have applications these days, so we'll do a 5:30.
Of course, planning and growth department or legal is probably watching this going, no, that can't work because we have laws that we have to abide on these days. So I probably shouldn't say that. I'll have to take that idea back.
There you go.
Not a bad idea, though.
All right, so last question for you. So again, thank you so much for taking the time today to do this. Is there anything that you want to tell the people? Is there any comments that you want to make about the campaign, or anything that you want people to know about? Because this will be probably like one of the last things that gets published before early voting starts early next month. And we're only about a month away from the election. So is there anything that you want to add that we haven't talked about? Anything that you want to?
I would say in line with the last 4 years, the next 4 years, my priority will be very clear and simple, and that's putting the people first. I will put you all first, as I have done. So that's not listening to people that priorities are not of the people, or very wealthy developers that come in with power and influence. I am still going to listen to the people. I'm everybody's commissioner, every person throughout the county. I am happy to help them. I'm proud of the accomplishments that I've achieved. Every year I've worked on that budget. You pointed out earlier, in that 8.3 just this last year, we're going to find some more money this year, saving those people the assessments. That comes from listening people. That's not something you pick up just being a commissioner and just go in with a project like, hey, I want to change the way we rate these grants and how we assess these people. That's listening to the people and what they care about. Protecting the environment. Once we lose it, we never get it back. And the whole state of Florida should be concerned with the aquifer that lies below us. It's not an unending resource, and we need to think about that as we grow and move ahead. And part of that is managing the growth in Citrus County. So my priorities are in line with the people that I'm listening to, and that's the every person, right? Just the everyday person. That's who I consider myself to be. That's how I was raised here. Was never in a circle of influence. I came from very humble people and had a very humble upbringing, and these are my people. No matter their status in life or who they know, if they live here in Citrus County, I'm the commissioner that will help them.
Okay. So I appreciate you coming today. So again, this is Commission candidate Diana Finegan running this year. And early voting starts August 7th. And then the primary is the
August 18th. And I would appreciate your vote.
Yes, and this is open to the county, so it is not a closed primary, so everyone can vote for this primary regardless of your political affiliation. So make sure you guys get out and vote for the candidate of your choice for that. So thank you again for coming, taking the
Thank
time
you
to
for
do
your
this, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.